So, however we find our way here, I know that there are some of you that are sitting around the dinner table, and if you are doing that, I want you to think about the Passover meal. It is the meal that Jesus was celebrating with his disciples on this day, long ago, and they were celebrating. They were celebrating their ancestors and how God saved the Israelites from harm. And they were remembering how Moses took the people through the parted rivers. They were remembering the journey. They were remembering the tears of those who cried for the deaths that had happened around them. They were remembering the gifts of grace that they experienced. And tonight, we are commemorating Jesus gathering in the upper room in Jerusalem with his disciples, remembering the ancient times of his day when he also experienced those who were being persecuted around him, and he stood up for them. As we enter into this service this evening, I would like to ask you to also keep in mind, use your imagination as if you were in Jerusalem 2,000 years ago, sitting around the table with Jesus, but also keep your imagination in the reality of today. Who are the peoples of our time that have experienced oppression, who have been murdered in the last 3 weeks? Our Asian sisters and brothers, those who are innocently shopping for food for their families in the Super King store in Boulder, Colorado, and now those who have been murdered in California. Oppression isn't of Jesus' time. Oppression still happens today. So as we enter into this evening, imagine Jesus at the table with you. And after supper, he asked the people, his friends, his disciples, those who were coming to be a part of his ministry, who had no idea what the days ahead would hold, but he had an idea because he knew that he had angered the establishment of his time. So let us take a walk through history. Before I read this passage from 1 Corinthians, I do want you to know that there are pictures here that I took in Jerusalem. There are other pictures that I share with you that were taken to help us remember this day. So hear the holy words of 1 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 23 through 26. Offered to you from the Message. Let me go over with you again exactly what goes on in the Lord's Supper and why it's so centrally important. I received my instructions from Jesus himself, and I passed them on to each of you. The Master Jesus, on the night of his betrayal, took bread. Having given thanks, he broke it. He broke it and he said, "This is my body broken open for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And if you have a muffin before you from the Holy Kit, I invite you at this time to break it open and to see with your own eyes what is at the center of it. Hold it up. And show the camera, what did you find? For those of you who don't have a holy kit, you should find in your mind's eye the gift of a heart. Yes, the gift of a heart. And after supper, he did the same with the cup. This cup is my blood, my new covenant with you. Each time you drink of this cup, I beg of you to remember me, said Jesus. What you must solemnly realize is that every time you eat this bread and every time you drink this cup, you reenact in your words and actions the death of the Master himself, of Jesus himself. You will be drawn back to this meal again and again until the Master returns. You must never let familiarity breed contempt. So take and eat, remembering how Jesus shared this simple meal of bread and cup with those who gathered around a table with him, with the image of these breads made today in Jerusalem. What must that meal have tasted like to them? And let us continue our snapshot. Go ahead, Veronica.
Good evening. Eat this bread, drink this cup, come to me and never be hungry. Eat this bread, drink this cup, trust in me and you will not thirst. Eat this bread, drink this cup, come to me and never be hungry. Eat this bread, drink this cup, trust in me and you will not thirst.
As we allow the mystery of Jesus to be present with us tonight, let us remember the words of John 13, verses 1 through 5. Before the Passover festival began, Jesus was keenly aware that his hour had come to depart from this world and to return to the Creator. From beginning to end, Jesus' days were marked by his love for his people. Before Jesus and his disciples gathered for dinner, the adversary filled Judas Iscariot's heart with plans of deceit and betrayal. Jesus, knowing that he had come from God and was going away to God, stood up from the dinner, removed his outer garments. He then wrapped himself in a towel, and he poured water in a basin and began to wash the feet of the disciples, drying them with his towel. I remember the times that we gathered in the fireplace room, and I had the honor to wash your feet. Hear the words according to John chapter 13, verses 6 through 10, spoken to us from the voice. Simon Peter. As Jesus approaches him, Simon Peter says, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus responds, "Peter, you don't realize what I'm doing, but you will understand later." And Peter responds in only the way that Peter can, "You will not wash my feet now or ever." And Jesus responds, "If I don't wash you, you have nothing to do with me." And Peter says then, in all of his enthusiasm, as some of us have that same enthusiasm, "Then wash me, but don't stop with my feet. Cleanse my hands and my head as well." And Jesus, in his wisdom, replies, "Listen, anyone who is bathed is clean all over except for the feet. But I tell you this, not all of you are clean." And so we remember the dusty roads of Jerusalem. We remember that when we wear sandals, our feet too are laden with dust. And when we wear them all summer long, they are cracked and broken. Would we allow Jesus to wash our feet? I invite you in this moment to think of contemporary foot care. What comes to mind? What comes to mind for me are those innocent people who were killed in Atlanta for caring for people's bodies. What comes to me are the people who give us manicures and pedicures. What comes to me are the people in their dying beds who long to have their feet massaged. Let's take a moment of silence and hold those people in our hearts. What comes to me is walking the marathon of life and having people ready to massage the legs, the weary, weary legs at the end of the day. That's what Jesus was doing, humbling himself to be a servant for those who followed his way. Today we remember when Pope Francis broke tradition and included women in the foot washing rituals, including prisoners, including people of all sexual orientations. And we ask that he include us. Receive the wisdom again from John chapter 13, verses 12 through 17. After washing their feet and picking up his garments, Jesus reclined at the table again. Do you understand what I have done to you? You call me teacher and Lord, and truly that is who I am. So if your Lord and teacher washes your feet, then you should wash one another's feet. I am your example, he said. Keep doing what I do. I tell you the truth. A servant is not greater than the master. Those who are sent are not greater than the ones who sends them. If you know these things, if you put them into practice, you will find happiness. You will find happiness.
Wounded love that cries for healing, here we hold each other's pain. Wounded systems, bruised and bleeding, bear the load, the scars of strain. Dollars ration our compassion, our decisions through the day. Jesus of the healing spirit, free us to another way. Through our nation spent frustration, through the corridors of stress, many them of a kind wisdom, only feel and only bless. Tax and tithe are for a purpose, shared to shield the poor and weak. Past the symptoms of our sickness, let the voice of justice speak. Honor those whose loving spirit mercies, hope restores and heals. Towel and basin used in service, like the Christ who comes and kneels. In the tending, in the mending, may we see the right and fair. In our common quest for wholeness, heal each other by our care. In our common quest for wholeness, heal each other by our care.
As we continue our snapshot, looking over the images that remind us of Maundy Thursday 2,000 years ago and living in to what it means to celebrate Maundy Thursday today. I offer you this scripture according to John chapter 13, verses 31b through 35, as you view this mound that is found on the Camino de Santiago, where you're invited to bring your burdens and lay them down, where I placed my burdens on behalf of you in 2019. And I admired whoever walked there before me and laid before us the words of love and peace and hope and healing. When Judas was gone, Jesus said, "Now the human one has been glorified, and the eternal one has been glorified in him." If God has been glorified in Jesus, God will also be glorified. God will also glorify the human one in the God self and will glorify him immediately. Little children, I am with you for a little while longer. You will look for me. But just as I told the Jewish leaders, I also tell you now, where I'm going, you cannot come. I give you a new commandment. Love one another, just as I have loved you. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. Lay your burdens down and love each other. This is my friend Mark, who made that journey with me. At dawn, when he laid his burdens down, Jesus invites us to lay ours down also. I pray that you will join us again tomorrow on Pitkä Perjantaina, Long Friday, which we here in America and those who speak English around the world called Good Friday. God be with you until we meet again.